the form. There are no responses at this point. Check your Gmail email.
Okay.
Yep, we're good.
Good.
Okay, it looks like our YouTube link is up and running. So our next item is item Roman numeral 1D, public comments. This is the portion of the meeting that we reserve for any comments from the public. We understand that there's at least a couple of portals available to the public to input written comments or written matters. And do they also have the ability to type in chat?
Yes.
Okay. So there's 3 different methods that members of the public can address us. Comments are generally limited to 3 minutes. We do plan to read any comments that are submitted, at least for some portion of the time. If it becomes repetitive, then the chair reserves the right to go ahead and conclude the public comments portion of the meeting and move on to our business meeting. But at this time, are there any members of the public that wish to present a public comment to the board? We'll wait a few moments and see if we receive anything here.
Kevin says no comments made via email or phone yet.
Okay, the board secretary indicates he's received no comments. Anything else, Chad, on the Zoom?
Yeah, we've got a couple of comments here. So I'll just start reading through them.
Okay.
One of them is, I want to say thank you for all of your hard work. Do I need to read off names or anything?
We would if they were here, so I think that's appropriate.
Okay. So that's Ellen Bell. Amber Funk comment is children that have IEPs or 504 plans. How will this be handled if we have to do online learning when the child does not engage with any electronics? Jody Schwartz's comment is the sound is low.
Okay. We have a tech person here. Maybe he can help that. Thank you.
All right. Another one from Nicole says this might not be a question for this meeting, but what is the plan with associates who work for the school?
Might have her elaborate a little bit more on that.
Tim Sauer says, speak louder into the microphone.
All right.
Noted. Nora Moss says, hello, I was joining the YouTube channel. Is your live stream turned on? Thank you. I don't know if that was.
Do we know if our live stream, I believe our live stream is up now.
Yeah, it's on about 10 to 15.
Okay.
Thumbs up from Nora Moss. I don't see anything else from the feedback form at this point.
Okay, thank you, Chad.
Do have for Sarah that posts on YouTube, yes, the agenda is posted publicly. If you go to the Southeast Polk webpage, under district, there's a Board of Education, and then you can find the meetings and agendas on there.
Any other comments? All right, at this time, I think we'll close the public comment section of the meeting and move on to item 1E, which is the consent agenda. But before we do that, I know Lori, you said you wanted to say something about that.
I did. I just wanted to thank everyone that is retiring, just because it's after the end of the school year and toward the beginning of now. But for those retiring, thank you very much for your years of service. It is most definitely appreciated. And all of the board thanks you for your time with our school district.
All right, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Lori. A second?
I'll second it.
Brett? Any questions or comments about the items in the consent agenda? All right, Karen?
Crow,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes. All right, Roman numeral 2, old and new business. First item is food and nutrition service preventative maintenance. Yep.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. I have a second.
Second.
Okay.
One question, Dirk. Nothing's changed from year to year, contract wise.
No, we just had the wrong year previously, so this fixes the,
Very good.
All right. Karen?
Nave,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Okay, next item is Roman numeral 2B, first read of board policies. Have a motion on that.
Second.
Thanks, Rick. Any questions or comments about the board policies? Our representatives on that committee fine with those amendments?
Yeah, there was some good conversation on some of them. I'll kind of bring up one, I guess, that might be something that we'll have to look into, and that was kind of attendance, how you take attendance with the online version, if that's the. So that, we went ahead and sent it in just as a regular as-is attending school type thing, but it'll be something that administration may want to just kind of look over and go. So if you did come across that one, it does specifically go to Insight School. Because I know we had some discussions on as far as how will attendance be going online versus in class, if that's one of the routes that we picked today. So we didn't really have any direction to go on other than just as is. So just, I guess, reference for that, but good conversations on the others and not a lot of changes. But
Okay,
I guess the one question we had, the district operation during public emergencies. Because we were talking about, and in order to be kind of like nimble with our district and be able to go in and out quickly, that's where we kind of decided maybe to delegate that to the superintendent. And then it just says with guidance from board leadership. So that'd be where, I mean, Dirk does a great job of communication, but that'd be where he kind of contacts Gary and then kind of goes through. And you know how Gary canvasses, or we canvas kind of everybody's opinion real quick. We thought that would be faster than like formal board action. So I don't know if you guys kind of think it the same way, but we were just trying to be something that, you know, kind of like a quick decision rather than having to to a formal. So you kind of agree with that, Dirk?
Yeah, and honestly, with the resolution, that's how we've been kind of operating in the short term
Yep.
too, so.
Yeah. So I thought things have been
Seems to
going really
work.
well. So
Any other
Move
comments?
to approve.
Yeah,
Move to approve.
all right. Well, I guess we've got the motion in second, so. Any more comments, questions? All right, Karen?
Powell,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes,
Crab,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes?
Krell,
Yes.
Nave,
yes.
Okay, our next item is Roman numeral 2C, Southeast Polk Return to Learn Plan.
okay, you need a motion first?
Yes, let's
Okay.
do a motion first.
Motion to approve by the school district.
All right,
I couldn't hear.
I just moved to approve the return to learn plan with the following pathway models for 2020, 2021. Recommendation by the school district.
all right, second.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you, Chad. Dirk, do you want to talk about it?
You bet. I'll go through this a little bit more. Sorry about that. And I think, Mark, are you going to put this up on the screen?
Can I step in for 1 second? There was a comment that Karen and Fisher they're able to hear very clearly. It's kind of a little bit loud on the loud side, and everybody else is kind of quiet. So I don't know if there's any adjustment we can make with mics.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, to just run through this process review. This work started back in May, and as you know, we've collected feedback, learned a lot along the way about a lot of different things. Learned the rules, had the rules change, adapted to changes, and we have used all of this feedback in consideration as we develop these plans. So the return to learn plan itself, we went through together at the last board meeting. We also had a chance to go through this with our staff and also with parents in the community. But just a couple of highlights, specifically regarding health and safety. The return to learn plan does have processes in place for health resources and support, workplace cleaning and safety, facial coverings for all students and staff, social distancing, hand washing, sanitizing, partitions, be that plexiglass, plastic, whatever, where possible. Also addresses technology, and then just the numerous issues as it regards to teaching and learning. And remember that this plan itself, it's attached to this board agenda. It's also on our website right there on the front page, and there's an entire page dedicated to it.
Dr. Lubnick,
Yes.
they're saying it's still hard to hear. I don't know if you can get closer to the mic without getting
We'll see if we can.
Speakers on your computer.
So the learning pathway recommendation itself, what we are recommending is a combination, hybrid 1 and hybrid 2. For the first 2 weeks of the school year, basically from the first day of school through the Labor Day weekend, hybrid 2 for all. Then the remainder of the first quarter, hybrid 1 for preschool through 5th grade, and hybrid 2 for 6th through 12. And remember that all families have the option of choosing online learning for their students if that is the direction that they prefer. There is not a need for a criteria. It's just family choice. We do ask on the online that we have a commitment of at least 9 weeks, as it will require an allocation of staff and a shifting of how we have things at this moment. And then we would reevaluate constantly, but specifically because the first quarter ends at the end of October, we could reevaluate in October to see how we move forward from there. Just a further description as a reminder, Hybrid 1, who are students and families who choose to learn 100% remotely, do so. All others learn in person. Hybrid 2 is where students and families who choose to learn remotely do so. The rest of the students alternating between an A and a B schedule, where they would be in person, for example, Monday, Thursday, and every other Wednesday. And on the days that they are not in person, then they would be learning remotely. The second group would then be Tuesday, Friday, and every other Wednesday. Students with IEPs would have the opportunity to attend daily. Regardless of the board's decision tonight, our next steps involve a lot of communication. Tomorrow morning, information will be on our website describing what happens tonight, what the plan that is approved consists of. And then we will have an explanation of where we go from there regarding options and a timeline. I do want to just address a few things that may help clear up some questions ahead of time. The first 2 weeks, we feel that the Hybrid 2 option provides the safest conditions allowed by current law to transition back to school for our students and staff. Give us the chance to work out the possible beginning of the year issues. Just as a reminder, we're going to be implementing numerous processes and procedures that we've never done before. There's bound to be some learning, and we feel that this would give us a better chance at sustaining services and not having to shut down, and also allow us to prepare for Hybrid 1. Looking at the elementary and Hybrid 1, a few things that we recognize: the preschool through 5th grade student need for routine, current COVID-19 data on children, working parents and the supervision issue, our ability to group and social distance within our buildings, with about 15% of our student body choosing online, which from our survey data, that's what we have right now, knowing that could change as well. On the secondary side, why Hybrid 2? With our building, our larger building enrollments, size and space becomes an issue. It will be very difficult to social distance with larger populations and bigger bodies. This reduces the number of students on site at any one time. Also recognizing students are more independent at this age and less likely to need supervision. Recognizing current COVID-19 data in adolescents. This would also give us the ability to have smaller pods of students and less interaction that is a little bit more common at the secondary level as far as moving from classroom to classroom. And in general, we feel that this plan will lessen the potential spread of the disease, resulting in fewer school closures. This will allow us to sustain services and not start and stop. We could transition either way with new data. And that's, again, something that has to be said at every step with this. All of this is subject to change with new information and requirements.
A couple questions that have come in, Dirk. When we're talking about social distancing within the schools, are we considering 6 feet or 3 feet?
6 feet.
Are you able to put the screen share back up? We had some questions about that.
If a family picks the online earning option and their student has an IEP, how do we go about meeting that?
They will be in contact with the school and they'll work through an IEP meeting.
In this plan, I want to make sure that you will remain flexible and fluid, and you stated that. And if down to the data at the last possible date, it's needed to delay the start of school, if that's necessary, you don't have any qualms doing that if the numbers go the wrong direction.
Correct, I don't.
Okay. And then we'll keep all the employees informed as
Yes.
to, as one question earlier asked, what about us? And I know you've had employee meetings, but just keep them informed, and so they're as well
Absolutely.
informed as possible, And then one other question I had was the infection rate flexibility. I know there's one standard, and I would prefer that the school district makes that determination of when our infection rate within our buildings or a building is too high. You determine that versus somebody. I know Polk County has to have a say in that, and I know we're the highest infection county in the state. And I just want to make sure we have flexibility for that when a building situation,
Yeah, we'll be in constant monitoring of each building and the district. So yes.
I want to make sure that, can you guys all hear me?
Yes.
I want to make sure that we put safety first, and I want to make sure that our students, of course, are safe at all levels and doing their best to follow the protocol, whichever plan we choose, of course. And I also am very concerned about our staff, our teachers, our associates, our specialists, our everybody in the building. And I don't want to forget the bus drivers that have a huge role in this. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say I'm concerned about the number of subs that we have available and the number of bus drivers that we have. I saw that we had 2 resignations on our agenda tonight, and I just think we have to be careful what kind of position we're putting some of our teachers and our bus drivers in, as well as our nurses. And I think our plan is excellent. I applaud everybody that had input in it. But I just hope that whatever we choose, that we back whatever plan we have with everything we have from the board, and we support our administrators. That we have to have a no tolerance for people that are trying to maybe disregard the plan and coughing on purpose, spitting, refusing to wear masks. Those kind of things just can't be tolerated. We have to support our schools and help them implement this plan. And I know that many parents are worried about their kids getting, they've already lost several months of school and they need to get back. And I think the plan that you guys are laying out is tremendous.
Dr. Lipnick, can you just, on hybrid 2, I'm coming around to the first weeks, and if we have to go maybe a month on a hybrid 2 type thing, but I'm really not, I guess, liking the whole first quarter of hybrid 2. But can you explain just a little bit more? The concerns I have, obviously, is hybrid 2 is, it's not a big concern that we go every other or 2 days or however that rotation is. My concern is, like, how does the online portion of that work then? Do teachers report to their classrooms? Are they home? Because the teachers that are choosing to go back to the school, they're going to have to teach all week still. And then the online, how do they those people aren't, or are they going to, you don't really have to break those down, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Is so I don't want a war between teachers, and I think and staff in general, of well, I get to stay home or I get to go to the school. And I think that's some of the pieces that we are missing is what happens during these lectures. Because honestly, if I choose to be the teacher that goes back, and I've had several conversations on both sides. So I get the concerns, and I want to respect everybody's safety and, make sure that everybody's taken care of too. But I think if we look at a few weeks of the hybrid two, which I'll let you explain here, I think that's going to be probably the best for us to see what we can do, because I think when we look at the overall picture, we're going to have a lot of people choosing to do online once we make a decision, or they're going to want to go back to school. I'll let you go ahead and explain, and I got some more things on that, but I guess since I asked you to explain, I'll probably better let you speak now.
Well, thanks. I think that first we're confusing two different things there. There's the online only group, which we know that parents will have that choice. And those kids will never be on site. They'll just be online, but they'll be working with certified teachers of ours. So there's that group. In the AB hybrid, on the days that the students aren't in the classroom, they're still working with the same teacher. So they're going to log in at the beginning of that class from wherever, from home, we'll say that. And maybe for the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes, they're right there online as if they were sitting in the room. Those teachers are also going to have a chance on the days where they are face-to-face to explain a little bit more about, then here are the other things that you're going to need to be doing during that time. It might be collaborating with other students. It might be doing research. It might be, it just depends on the scenario. But so you're not having a teacher torn between teaching just only online students and then also the AB back and forth. I don't know if that helps clear that part up. Now, how we get to the teaching force that does deal just with the kids that choose online, that's still to be determined, because we need to know how many we're
Sure.
talking about.
Yeah. And some of the concerns that were brought to me is on the AB schedule, if it's a long-term thing, is some of those teachers obviously have children themselves that have to be online and teaching as well. So most times parents that choose obviously have that support, but the ones that choose that if we pick AB to be until October, some of those kids aren't going to have somebody there with them. And we're kind of under the assumption that, yeah, the 6 through 12 are self-sufficient, and majority of them are. I would not disagree with that. I think there's just a few out there, more than a few, that obviously you do struggle, that need that classroom piece. So yeah, you answered kind of a little bit of the questions that I had on the hybrid 2 versus the online. But I'm just not convinced that hybrid 2 is a long-term thing, because I think if we can figure out, does hybrid 2, it gets us in the doors, we can see where we need to tweak a lot of things. It's going to give us a couple of weeks to figure out, is the online portions working? Are we able to safely social distance? Can we make it work? Maybe once we even get in there, we don't know. We're just assuming that we can't do it, which is on the safe side. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying that, well, let's not worry about safety, but I think we're just assuming. So I like the 2 weeks, maybe the 3 weeks, even 4 weeks, if that's what it takes. And I think you should have full discretion at that once we make a decision here. But I think to sit here and just say we need to stick at hybrid 2 until October, we're not really letting the evaluation piece go. We're just assuming the hybrid 2's it. We're just going to stick with it because it does work. But what if hybrid 2 works, and then we have so many people that do want to go online that we actually reduce our own numbers? So I think that's the thing that we really need to think about is, can we reduce the numbers just by people choosing to go online and get those that want to go back in the classroom 100%. Because if we look at the surveys, and this is the thing that, and I think some of you have heard me say this, we're an organization that works on data and stats and all these numbers. And I'm concerned that we put these surveys out and we're not going to listen to what the parents and even the staff have to say. It's kind of hard to dissect some of them. But when you look at, I'll just pick the high school, junior high and Spring Creek numbers. You have on site, we have 36.6% that have picked on site. And then H1, and if I remember right, it's 16% that chose
Roughly.
the online version for H1.
Yep.
Is that also the same percentage for H2? So those that picked the AB, were those, did we have a number for those?
There was no such breakdown because in the AB, it's all the same model. It's online and face-to-face. It's not one or the other.
So if we go with H2, then some of them have to choose, we have to do online.
On the off days when they're not.
Yeah. Okay, so on H1, I think it was 16%. So if you take the 36% minus, or I'm sorry, H1 is 25% minus the 16% that want to do online, we have about a little over 51% on-site class time. Now, I don't think we'll have 48% that want to do online, but maybe we'll be close to those numbers. So I think I like the 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, if that's the discretion of the administration once they get it. But I would like to have a goal of getting everybody the hybrid one when it's safe and when we feel that it's necessary. But I don't think October is, we need to really set that date, that October is that date. I would be more comfortable to say, all right, let's start with the hybrid 2. And then if things are working based on the numbers that we have, after every principal and administrators had time to look at their building and say, I think we can make the numbers work because of here's who we have online. I like picking the online, saying if you choose online, this is the amount of time that you have to do it. Because I don't think you can flip back and forth because that does skew the numbers even more. And then we can't get actual data out of that. So as a district, a facility that we pick on numbers and stuff, the numbers are even there on the statistics of what is a major case for coronavirus. Again, not gonna sit here and say this isn't a deadly disease, but we do have families and teachers that want to get back into the classroom full time. And we have those that want to do online. So I think we can accommodate everybody's wishes. I would hope we could. I think that's the question still to be answered, but until we make a decision, we really won't know those numbers. So I just want to throw that out there and make sure that everybody understands it.
So a couple of things that I think that we need to address and clear up real quick to make sure that we're on the same page, because we're getting a lot of concern about when we're talking about hybrid 2, we're talking about like a Monday, Tuesday, and every other Wednesday, correct? Or are we talking one group Monday, one group Tuesday, flipping it?
It was as I read through it and
Yep.
Monday, Thursday, every other Wednesday, Tuesday, Friday, every other Wednesday.
What's the thought process there?
The every other Wednesday obviously gets us to the 50%. So we're
Yeah.
in the other piece. Then there's either a Monday or a Friday involved where they're not there. So it extends the weekend one way or the other, which we thought would be easier for families.
Interesting. And the other question that's popped up, just to make sure, we've talked about this in our last meeting, that if families have children that have different last names or the different designators, they would be able to make the.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So
Yep. will keep families together.
So I have concerns when it comes to the hybrid twos. We've talked about this as board, and we've talked about, you and I have talked about this as well. My concern is that the hybrid two is more of a placebo effect of actual safety, because specifically when we're talking about 6 through 12, we're not stopping interactions that happen at school events outside of the classroom, such as fall activities. My concern is that we're going to take these steps to try and be safe for our A through K students, who then turn around and go practice band, football, choir, or even debate with kids from the other class, or with kids from the other section, as it were, if you want to refer it to at that point. And at that point in time, are we not just undermining what we're attempting to do to begin with by allowing that? First and foremost, that's a concern that I have, as far as what is the standard there? How are we going to prevent that from happening? Or can we?
Well, there's inherent risk in any activity. I'll say that, but in the scenario that you're talking about, in those extracurriculars, a lot of them occur outside. All of them occur in an area where we can achieve social distance and keep people away and reduce the risk, mitigate as much as possible, as opposed to 2,200 high school kids in the building at one time.
Do you have more thoughts there?
Oh, I have plenty, but then
Okay.
there's 7 of us.
Well, I'll just jump in here.
Got
'Cause,
lots of time.
yeah, we have a number of questions that have come in too.
Absolutely.
But I just want to say from my perspective, looking at this, it seems like, you know, we're trying to help out those that have younger children that maybe, you know, single parent home, or both parents work. They don't have the ability to stay there and monitor their kindergartner to go through online learning, which is a huge challenge. And it seems like recommendation after recommendation from, you know, the American Academy of Pediatrics, CDC, et cetera, is saying if you can make it work with the younger children every day, that's, you know, in person, that's what's probably best for them. Obviously within parameters of how transmission is going in our community. So I feel like this plan does a good job of addressing that. It also allows us at the secondary level to space out more, and allows those, you know, with the AB days. And so I like that idea that we're able to try that out and see how that goes. There's definitely some studies out there, and you know, other studies that may contradict, but a very large study I saw through, I think it was South Korea, that indicated that the, you know, adolescents, I think it's 10 through 19 or something like that, had as large of a transmission rate or higher than adults. And so it seems to account for some of that too, where there may be varying levels of transmission based on age. So and then the other factor with, at the secondary level, you're not cohorting like you are in, you know, elementary. You're not necessarily with the same kids every day all the time. And so there's a lot of cross pollination, I guess, that could happen there with everybody being in the hallways and passing each other in between classes. So I feel like this is a good, really good plan. And I appreciate that it takes all those things into consideration. I think it does look at the public opinion data that we got through the surveys, because there are, you know, and you look at any of these categories, at least half, both staff and students, no matter how you break it down, want to be back in the classroom. And so I think we're handling that. I also like the kind of safe start idea that allows us to work out the logistics, because like you said, things are going to look very different, and it's going to be new for kids, it's going to be new for teachers, and I think we need some time to figure that out. It also gives us a little bit of buffer too, because all the schools are going to be opening, and we're going to be able to see kind of how that plays out. And if we take a safer approach, I think we can always open up more. I would hate to go the other way and be like, let's just, you know, throw everybody back in the school and see what happens. So I like that kind of slow start. So I do want to address a couple of these questions too. So one of them has to do with
Are
The
these
ability
Zoom?
to switch between
Chad, are
online.
these from Zoom?
Got the Zoom
Yes.
ones.
Okay,
Do you want me to read off
yeah.
names
sure.
too?
Well,
I guess.
I think just if there's a question that you want to ask, just ask it. If it's one of theirs, that's fine.
I'm in. Someone specifically said because they can't see us on the camera, if when board members speak, say which one of it is
Okay.
first.
That's true.
Good point. Okay, so one of these questions is, um, what if a child has an IEP and is also high risk?
Again, the IEP team would work with the family and they would develop a plan that made the most sense for that student.
Okay. Is the 6 feet of social distancing being implemented at the lower grade levels also?
Yes.
Some parent, could you elaborate on that? How some parents, one of them specifically on YouTube says, how is that possible seeing how small the classrooms are?
The principals have been working on that all summer.
And I won't go through all these because there's so many, but another question here is, what if a parent works for the district? Do they still have the option to choose if they want their kids to do online only?
Yes.
And I think this is a good one too. If a student begins in the hybrid model, can they switch to online only if they are no longer feel comfortable with the current environment? Or are they committed to 9 weeks as well?
No, I think we would work with families if they wanted to switch into,
Switch into online?
right.
Okay. There are the few other questions in here about how that transition between in-person and online would happen. So the other way around.
It would be much tougher. That's
Okay.
where we're.
So what happens? What happens when someone does test positive?
It depends on the scenario. So, I mean, we're going to be notified by public health if it happens and we don't know about it. If somebody brings it to us, then we're going to notify public health. That either way, once we know whichever direction that comes from, then the school nurse, the principal, and public health will get together, identify potential close contacts. Public health then gives us the guidance on their recommendations regarding quarantine, things like that. And then there'd be a notification from the school to the people that public health recommends that we notify regarding it. That's a kind of the quick version. There is attached to the board agenda tonight. That's spelled out in one of those handouts that's on the Return to Learn plan underneath board agenda. That one of the things that with all of the mitigating factors that we're putting in place, facial coverings, partitions, the social, decrease the likelihood of close contacts, which helps to decrease the likelihood of needing to quarantine, which then decreases the likelihood of having to shut down buildings, district, et cetera. Again, there's inherent risk and there's no guarantee, but any of those things help to decrease that risk, to help to keep us able to serve students consistently.
So another question here, is there consideration to extend hybrid to longer? And I guess maybe to expand that question a little bit, what's the decision matrix or decision process plan for switching between whether it's going from hybrid 2 to hybrid 1 because things are better, or the other direction?
And that really goes back to Brett's question too, which I wanted to get to anyway. So this is a kind of a good double segue here. The 9 weeks part of the recommendation was chosen just so that it gives parents a chance to plan ahead for their family plans. But there's nothing there that's like magical other than that it's how we divide the school year into 4 sets of 9 weeks. But I think that the part that's difficult is we're going to be evaluating and looking at this literally on a daily basis. And so to say that it has to be 9 weeks, I don't think anybody's married to where the timeline is. I mean, going into all this, I think everybody wants to have hybrid one, which is really, I mean, that's the choice to have kids back. I mean, that's what everybody wants, but we want to do things safely. To go through the specifically what's looked at, that was given to us by the Department of Education and the Department of Public Health a week or so ago. Like, that's also attached on the board agenda, and it's divided out by the level of community transmission from none to minimal, minimal to moderate, substantial controlled, and substantial uncontrolled. I'll say this, and it's publicly, it is a frustration for me, because we have an ethical duty to follow the law. We've got a moral duty to provide the safest possible environment for everybody involved here. And we're getting consistent mixed messages on what that number looks like. Those 4 community transmission things are straight from the CDC, but the CDC doesn't outline a percent positive to go along with those for school recommendations. The Surgeon General did, and the Surgeon General outlined 10% as that top line, which our criteria says 15%. I'm not here to argue any of those things. I'm just pointing out the fact that it's different, and it makes this not an easy, clear-cut answer to the question that you just asked me. What we'll look at, what we know by law in Iowa, underneath from none all the way up to moderate for community transmission, which is where we sit right now. Polk County today, the 14-day rolling average on percent positivity is 8%. So that puts us in the minimal to moderate category. And when you look at what options we have H1 and H2 as our options, according to Iowa law and the matrix that they've given us. So we'll look at all those things. Now, there are some things that aren't addressed on here. What about staff? That's been mentioned. That's a concern for everybody. What if our positive tests aren't kids? What if it's staff? Mm-hmm. And we don't have enough teachers to man a building or buildings? That's not even mentioned in the matrix for us to be able to move modes, and that's something that's being addressed. I know it's being constantly poked up the ladder here to say we need some guidance on this, because that could be a possibility. We hope not, but we have to plan for everything.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say, we have these guidelines here. They have some percentages. They seem high in relation to other, public health information. It would have been nice if the CDC would have been clear on exactly what those percentages should be. But at the end of the day, it seems like it should be something that we're making a decision on for our district. And I know there's a lot of debate in other communities about that as well. But I just kind of wanted to say that's where I stand is, I think we need to have clear metrics around when we evaluate those decisions. And that could be every 2 weeks. It could be once a month as far as frequency, but that we're looking at the numbers and then we're making a decision based on what's best for us.
This is Rick Powell. I'm confused by how we can social distance on buses if they're allowing 2 kids per seat, and some of the kids are on the bus for over an hour, and then even if they're coming into a school that is hybrid 2, and they're only half of them are there, that would help the bus situation if only half the kids were getting on the bus. But if we do hybrid 1, and the kids are 2 to a seat, I'm really worried about what could happen. What could the safety of what the kids would bring with them to school and then bring home to their families. So I'm really surprised that, they're allowing 2 kids per seat on a bus.
Hey,
Um,
Rick,
yes.
I asked this earlier today.
Yeah,
And each student on the bus would be wearing their mask.
yeah,
So
but
and I
they're only
flown,
1 foot apart if they're on the same seat.
I mean, I've flown on a plane during this,
Yeah,
beside people with a mask. I'm just telling you.
yeah,
As long as everybody's in a mask, that's the most protection we can give them other than not having them on the bus.
right, right. I just think if we at hybrid 2, where only half the kids are getting on a bus, would be more realistic. But I understand. Yeah, I understand and you make a good point, Lori. Thank you.
Rick, another thing to kind of go along with that, in our survey, which we know is not complete, and now it's old data, we had about half the number of people indicate that they would choose using bus services than we would normally transport. Now,
Right.
that may change after tonight when people know a little bit more specifically. And I know that Dan Schultz will be gathering that information as soon as possible once we have a plan moving forward.
Yes.
That will also make a big difference as to how
Right.
we run things. We may need to do multiple flights and do things in a different way than we
Yeah.
have. in the past.
Yeah. Thank you for your answer. That's good. That's good information to know, and I hope the public's listening. And I think our local churches, at least some of them, might help with childcare if some families are having trouble finding a way to go to work and have somebody watch their kids. I know at least some churches are, that I've talked to anyway, are in that boat of trying to help out. And if I could also say, getting back to Adam's questions about activities, I think that's why we have a boys athletic association and a girls union, and we're in the strongest conference or league in the CML, and all 3 of those groups are, they're going to do what's best for kids just like we are. And I think that we should follow their suggestions. If we disagree, that's our right to disagree, but I think taking away activities is kind of like taking away school. And, I think kids learn so much socially by being in activities, whether it's at school or at church or wherever they're involved. A lot of kids working at Hy-Vee or Target where they're around lots of people. So I just think that we want to be as possible as safety, but at the same time we have to be realistic, and we can't just strap the kids to a chair.
Here, let me have one, Adam.
I'll chime in on this one.
Well,
Do you want to
okay.
follow up on it
Yes,
first?
I do. Okay, so I am not a fan of hybrid 2 at all. And like Rick said, safety and being realistic is probably this is Tom Nave. Being realistic is probably the biggest thing. So yes, we have people traveling. Yes, we have people on airplanes with masks. We have people on buses with masks sitting next to each other. We have people that don't social distance all the time. We have a community that does not social distance all the time. So all this stuff is going on right now. So I have kids playing baseball, softball. You see them out football practice. These kids are around each other all the time with mask, a lot of times without mask. We have families that are doing the same thing. They're out and about. They're not social distancing. They're getting together. They're hanging out at bars. They're at stores talking. They're everywhere else, not being perfect little bubble people, social distancing all the time. And then we come to school, and all of a sudden we have to be safe. We have to do everything perfect. We have to stay 6 feet away. And these people are not doing this every day. So these kids, most of our kids, well, a lot of our kids in our district have been around each other all summer. So those kids have been to parties. Those kids have been doing all kinds of things. So a large part of our population is already together. But yet when we come to school, we're saying, hey, we have to be perfect in all aspects. No, we're going to make the kids wear masks. We're going to try to distance them as much as possible. We're going to do everything we can in a controlled environment to keep them safe. And I think a lot of them would be better off in that environment and be safer in that environment than they will be on their off days doing who knows what with who knows who. There is no supervision. There is no guidance when mom and dad are both at work. So, I mean, to me, it's better for us to have them in a controlled environment with us being the ones that are teaching them, how to wear their mask every day, how to use hand sanitizer, how to wash, how to be respectful of other people, how to maintain your distance, right? So we're providing them with an education, we're helping them stay safer. So that's why I get a little bit upset when we start talking about all this stuff going to online all the time. It's a little difficult. So for me, I'm on board with the hybrid 2 for the first 2 weeks. I think that's, like you said, a good transition, a good thing just to kind of get it people and going. But I mean, I would push for the hybrid 1 for K through 5 or pre-K through 5 and 6 through 12. So yes, the high school, we have a ton of kids and that building's going to grow for the next couple of years. But it's also the group of students that you can talk to, reason to, and hopefully are a little bit more socially responsible and a little bit more mature than the elementary kids as far as honoring the social distance, honoring the mask policy, being much better about washing their hands, about using hand sanitizer. So I mean, that's to me a more mature class, and that's something that we can teach them is social responsibility as we go through this process. So I mean, everybody talks like they live in a bubble and have been quarantined for the last 4 months. I'd like to know how many people have actually done that, have been truly quarantined.
Well, it sounds like, Tom, maybe half of the people haven't been. But
Right.
there are a lot of people that have been following the rules of what has been laid out. So if we're going to put everybody in a school together, realizing that half the people don't do what they're supposed to do and half do,
Right.
we have to do what's best for everybody because we have to educate all of them, plus keep the staff as healthy as we possibly can.
Right, which is what our PPE is for.
But to say that nobody's following the rules and nobody's in a bubble isn't true. So the people that have been following the rules that have been laid out by everybody and their dog, what we're supposed to do, and then they're going to be put in with the people that don't socially distance, don't wear masks. So how can none of us want to be in this position, but it's time that we have to put them all together, the people that don't follow the rules, the people that do, and educate all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to have a plan that everyone can live with and somewhat feel safe sending their kids to school or can come back to work and feel somewhat safe.
Right, which is what the PPE is for.
And actually, hybrid 1 does that. It allows those, it says right here, students and families who choose to learn 100% remotely, all others learn in person. So we're not mixing people that don't want to be there. And I think we will work with them. And I keep saying, I know we will, but how? I mean, those are the questions that we still don't know is what are the percentages of who wants to do online? I think we've got a good idea who wants, but once we make a decision, people are going to start saying, well, wait a minute. Now that you picked this, I may want to do that. So administration is going to have a lot more, but we're not mixing everybody. We're not saying 100% everybody going back. That's off the table. That's gone.
Right.
H2, in my opinion, there's a couple problems that we have with that is I like it for the first couple weeks, like I've already stated, but if we continue going on with it, you're forcing people which we talked about the other day, who has internet service. We went through this in March. We supplied multiple families with internet.
200,
Yeah,
220.
and that's another issue that we have. So I actually thought hybrid was just going to be, you're going to be in class for 2 days and then 2 more days, another group comes in and then those kids they're not doing anything else, which I wasn't so against that. But now we're really saying, parents, you have to make sure that your kids are getting online. Who's going to be responsible for all those kids? We're putting a lot more pressure on the families. And Rick had said one thing about daycares. If kids aren't in school, that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to go in other daycares. The churches are opening up, which I'm grateful for. Got daycares now that are, to the max because people don't know what to do with their kids because they have to get back to work. It's a problem that everybody has, but to sit here and say that, well, the churches are going to open up for daycares, well, that's great for the elementaries, but what do we do with the older kids that don't have those support systems at home? Mental abuse, sex abuse, all those things that are going on in people's homes right now that we have no idea. And the school's a big proponent of solving some of those problems. And that's why I think if we give these people choices, which the survey has been out there, they've kind of told us a little bit, let these parents make their decision on what they want to do. We just have to give some kind of direction. But with hybrid 2 is saying, well, you can only go, we're only going to have you go these 2 days and then you got to get online, forces the families to make more decisions that's harder on them, on the public. It's easier for us as a district, which that's why I said the teachers even have choices. I think if a teacher come in and said, I would be supportive of it. Hey, I don't feel comfortable coming back. I would be for, let's find something for them to do. No different than if a bus driver or somebody that maybe we don't have all the kids in school and we've got teachers' aides that, what are we going to do with these teachers? I want everybody to stay employed. It's 1 year that we got to try to figure this thing out. And when you look at it, it is really about family choice. I'm going to be honest, when we first had these discussions about wearing masks, one of the board members called me or sent an email. I can't remember how it was. And I said, I don't think everybody should be forced to wear a mask. That's a family decision. That's a medical decision. You choose that. I've come completely off that, where if masks are supposed to work, we have to rely on them to do their job. And as teachers, as bus drivers, as lunch servers, whatever job you have for the district, we have to support that, which Tom's already said. So I think H2 throws a lot more into it for long term. That's why I really don't want to throw a date on there. I think we should give administration the discretion to evaluate it, with our main goal getting to hybrid 1 as quick as we can and safely as we can. And I think everybody's on board about safety. That's why I don't really want to put a date on anything, because if we sit here and say, and I think Dirk's already mentioned it, we don't have to put a date on it. They're going to evaluate it all the time. But if we make a decision and say, well, we're going to go with hybrid 1 for pre-K through 5 and hybrid 2 for 6-12, and then October, we're stuck with that. I really feel we're stuck with that. So, I mean, I know I'm rambling, but hybrid 2 puts a lot more burdens on families than hybrid 1, and I think we just need time to evaluate this. And I think that's the main thing I need to say is we can sit here all night and all day, and we're just gonna confuse families more if we get in there and say, well, we're gonna try this and we're gonna try that. Well, let's just get into the schools. Let's do hybrid 2, evaluate it, with our goal being as quickly as we can and as safely as we can. Let's get to hybrid 1 and let those families make the decisions of, I want my son or daughter to go ride that bus. I want my son and daughter in this classroom. This teacher can make the decision this year to say, I'm not comfortable being in the classroom. I like to do online, or whatever they choose to do.
But I think hybrid 2 is an alternative to totally online, which it gets them back in front of the teacher a couple days a week.
But you're also putting them in, making them go home and do the online portion, which a lot of these families didn't want to do that. When you have on-site and H1, you only had 16%, 16% of H1 that wanted to do online. And for on-site, you had 33%. And I'm sorry, I'm not good at math. I didn't get this good Sally's.
You went to Bondurant.
Not dogging on Bondurant, but if I would have went to Sally's Polk, I would have had a little better math skills. But if you can do the math, that 24.8% wanted H1, and if 16% of those wanted online, again, that gets your numbers way up there for those that want to. So I'm about choice for the families, making their decisions on what they do. We just need to give them direction, and I don't think we give them enough.
I think hybrid 2 gives the high school age and secondary campus kids an alternative to all face-to-face, part 50-50 instead of all online or all in person. that's kind of why I like the flexibility of the recommendation.
For those
It's a
that are
little-
self-sufficient that can, there's a lot of students that
Well,
need to.
and we have that,
pushing.
we have that when there isn't a pandemic. We have all kinds of kids, which that's why we count on the staff to make sure that we're filling in those holes where need be, and they're catching that situation. And I'm all for the flexibility of the date, because I think this is a moving target, and that's why I continue to say this has to be fluid and flexible, because we don't know what next week is going to bring. We don't know what the numbers are going to be up or down or anything else, or how soon we get completely shut down again. So I'm all for flexibility, Brett, but I also think hybrid 2 is an option too, that doesn't have to have you completely all online, but gets some of those kids in the building, and maybe they start to feel more comfortable, or their parents start to feel more comfortable, or the staff gets to feel more comfortable, but at lower numbers, with half of them in the building every other day or whatever it becomes.
Yeah, and again, I'm okay with the 2 weeks. If Dr. Lupnick says, look, we're not really,
I'm not putting any date on it.
we're not comfortable on that, we need to go another week, try to figure out this online piece. But at some point within that month, we should be able to say, look, COVID's not changing. I really believe that this is going to be a long-term deal, that we can sit here and say, well, we're going to wait until the numbers get better. What if the numbers never get better? Do we just, status quo and say, well, we're just going to stay on H2? And, I mean, parents have to work. I know I have to work. You guys all have to work. You have to go to work. Your kids have to either, get to school somehow, have to get online somehow. And so I just want to make sure that we're not going to just, H2 is not the saving grace here. Our goal is trying to get these kids back into school. And again, if masks work, we have to really rely on those masks and that they're wearing them. And
What's
I
your
get it.
goal?
And there's going to be times, and I agree with Tom. I've seen teachers posting stuff on Facebook that they're at amusement parks, ball games, and then they're saying they're afraid to come back to work. Well, if you're afraid to come back to work, why are you at the ball game? Why are you at amusement parks? That's the frustrating part as me as a board member. And I want to respect those teachers and those staff members that, hey, if you truly got an issue, I'm willing to work with you. And I know all of you would too. I don't think there's a question on that. But at what point do we draw the line? Because say October gets here and the numbers aren't good, we can always either step our game up or we can slow it down. We can move it, but our ultimate goal should be getting everybody back to the school. And if we have to wear masks every day, we're doing our partitions, doing our best to 6 foot. Nowhere in society are we 6 foot. You can go down Hy-Vee or Fairway. You walk down people, some are wearing masks, some aren't. They're not saying 6 foot because, hey, I got to get that can of cream corn that's right in front of you. I mean, so if we expect our kids to be 100% 6 foot distance, it's never going to happen.
So what I'm hearing is because some people don't do the right thing, we should just expect that.
For
That's
everybody.
exactly what I just got
Yeah,
from both
from-
you and Tom, was because some people don't choose to wear masks, because some people choose not to social distance, we should just teach that to our kids and accept as reality. That's
No,
not
no, 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 no,
acceptable.
no. No, exact opposite. I think our kids are safer at school, where we're teaching them how to properly wear masks, how to properly distance, how to properly wash their hands, how to properly. So I truly believe our kids are safer in our care, in our school every day than they are running around the neighborhood by themselves 3 days a week and then 2 days a week.
You got to remember, those
So
are
we're
the kids
teaching
that-
them.
Those are the parents.
Well, and
So to
let me
sit here-
dispel
I-
that as a myth too. That's
Not always the choice for us. Yes, hybrid one theoretically gives them the choice, but some people don't have the choice because they have jobs that require them, or they have kids that can't do technology for different reasons.
one of our parents in the comments talks about specifically screens give her, sorry, I didn't say son or daughter, seizures. So they don't have a choice. So they're having to introduce their kids into the population that they don't want them to be there, but they don't have a choice otherwise. And I think, like you were saying, we have control about what happens in our schools. So
Yes.
it's, yes, we can mandate masks.
Yes.
Can we facilitate 6-foot distancing through all of our classrooms? It sounds like one of the reasons that we're talking about H2 or hybrid 2 for 6 through 12 specifically is because we can't do 6-foot distancing because the populations are just too large. But that's also where we came back to what we were initially talking about with activities is, does that cause additional conflict or additional chances for that to happen? Because while I understand things like band, and we can certainly do distancing for that and choir, how do you do that with contact sports? How do you do that with, because you can't guarantee social distancing when you're 6 inches apart. It's well and good to have the rules that IHSAA has talked about specifically where they're saying no spitting. That's great, but it doesn't actually function. And IHSSA, or I'm sorry, IHSAA, too many acronyms. IHSAA passed the buck on this and specifically told the school districts to make the choice on whether they want to have activities or not. So it's not some great guidance of what's doing wrong. They acknowledge that it's the best that they can do and hope that somebody else makes the decision for them. I understand what you guys are saying about hybrid 2. I also think that it's not a great model. I understand that it puts far too much burden on families. And it's certainly not workable for a lot of people. And it's certainly not workable for anyone through PK through 5, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's better when you're talking about specifically high school, because frankly, if we're looking at what they're looking at next year for secondary school, if we're still in some type of COVID, it's mostly online. That's what they're going to be seeing when they go off to the Iowas, Iowa State, Simpsons, pick your college, is online. So maybe this is an opportunity to start teaching them about how to do that and function. I don't like the idea of hybrid 2, but I understand the necessity in specifically our buildings where we cannot facilitate social distancing. And at that point in time, we either need to find a way to make more room, or we need to find a way to make it work. Because while masks are great, they function when you can have 6-foot distancing. They don't function when you're back to back during passing period in high school. So those are my concerns about how we're laying this out. I don't know how we function in a hybrid 1 in high school unless we're talking about 25% or more choosing to go online. And frankly, from our surveys, what we found is it's roughly about 12%. And that's 12% total. That doesn't tell us where that 12% comes from. Do we have a better breakdown about where that 12% comes from, or is that just across the district? Okay, how much of the high school population was wanting to go online?
High school online was 202.
So
Still leaves 2,000.
yeah, still, so it's like 9% of the population of the school wants to go online. I mean, that's less than.
Well, but you got to take into account, you got hybrid 1 and hybrid 2 that you don't really know what the numbers are exactly. because
Right.
Same thing is on site. On site is 502. Where you have online was 12%, 36. So if, and these are just numbers that Dirk threw out. I think they're pretty accurate. 15%, was it, Dirk?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So each one, you had 15% that wanted to do online. So you add that 15% to the other 12%. I mean, it does push it up there. Now you're not getting your numbers.
But that's why I asked him if we had specific numbers for the high school as opposed to the district wide. I
Let them
understand that,
do
but
their
we're working
things.
with what we've got.
But, so I guess going back to the question of, you're not sure if my statement and Tom's statement were that we just have to live with it. I think you just said yourself, we have to find a way.
We have
At
to
some
find
point,
what's
we have
the
to
best
find a way,
solution.
and that's
So I
all I'm
guess
saying is, yeah, we have to
Right.
find, and that's the point, is I said, we go back 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks in hybrid 2. I get that. I'm completely for that if that's what we need to do. But I think the board, we need to have an understanding that hybrid 1 is the direction we're going. For everybody, not because we're going to do ourselves so much better getting those kids back in school if we can look at it and see what it is. What do we have here? Then put everybody, once Dirk and administration and other staff say, yeah, I think we can make this work, then I'll be more comfortable saying, having a definite. But just to sit here and say right now, hybrid 2 for 6 and 12 is the way to go until October. And I'm sorry, some of you may feel that I'm going against administration. I'm not going against administration. I'm trying to work a solution that's best for everybody. And I just don't see locking it into a date is the best. So that's going against administration on his recommendation. If that's how people feel, I'm sorry, but But that's how we get through things but I think our main goal has to be hybrid one for all students.
Well, sorry, Lori, go ahead.
I think the reason that the administration has laid it out is so that families can plan for the first quarter. And that's all this is about. And I'm sure it's going to be flexible, but they're trying to give them okay, whatever day they're going to be there, this day, and this day, they know what days they have to plan for this. And they just need to start planning for something.
So,
Knowing that the kids are gonna be going back to school. What if the daycares get so full? Some of them obviously have their own kids. So let's say you have daycares, that can't, we end up staying on hybrid 2 for the rest of the year. All the daycares and churches are gonna be, at some point, can be full because kids need a place to go. And then those those daycare providers that have their own kids have to teach their own kids. So it's a circle of web. I mean, it just.
Yes, it is. And the emails the last month should tell all of us that. But, there's 7,000 different what ifs from each family, from each student, from each parent, from each teacher. We understand that. And nothing here is, none of this is perfect. And yes, all of us want all of the kids in school as soon as we can get them there. But we have to make a decision that the staff can work with, that the families can start working towards whatever that is, and get everybody educated. So none of this is perfect, and none of this is ideal, and none of us like this. But we have to make a plan that works for our school district. And right now, this is what the administration says we can make work, and they can make function. And
And respectfully, we haven't done anything. So how do we know if hybrid 2 is even gonna work? That's why I'm at least willing to say, let's try hybrid 2. See how it's gonna go, with our goal being hybrid 1 is that thing. And it can be,
but isn't that
As
what
soon
all
as
this
2
is
weeks.
about right now? Is let's see how this works.
yeah,
This
but
is what we're doing
you're
right
mi-
now.
so, but if we go by the recommendation, and this is where people think that I'm going against Dirk on his, which I respect his recommendation, but if we lock it into a date, that's the date the board decision, that's the date they have to go by. He can't change that, not without another board meeting. And why should we have to come back to the table? We should give him direction to say hybrid 2 for minimum of 2 weeks. If he has to go to, who knows, in 2 weeks, we may have to shut down. And that's the thing that we're forgetting is it's not just about going up and getting everybody back in school. The
Not
state may
forgetting.
come back in and say, sorry, we got to close down. So it can go either way, but he has to have the discretion to get us going to where we're going. And if we lock it into this October date, then we have to come back in the end of September or 1st of October and go through this again and hash it all back out.
But that's what we did in March. We
But
came
we-
back 3 or 4 times, but we're flexible. He's flexible. The school.
To make the decisions based on what's best for staff, best for students, best for parents, with our goal, getting everybody back into school. I'm not saying who knows, it may not be a month. It could be October. I mean, I just don't want to lock into this recommendation as is because you're locked into October.
And I disagree. I don't think we're locked into anything.
Once the board makes a vote,
Well, actually, there's nothing in the resolution specifically that puts that power to the board to have to reevaluate. It says we will reevaluate in October, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a board level reevaluation.
so if he says that October, we're gonna go full, everybody back to school, no online, anybody gonna have a complaint with that?
Oh, no, we could certainly have, that
I
doesn't
think-
mean we can't step in. But that also doesn't mean we have to take action. It gives us to make that decision for the district. I think we're getting hung up on the date stuff. Here's the thing. what is our goal?
Get back to school.
For what purpose?
And our students.
Educate our students the best way we can.
Okay, so education is our goal. So if education is our goal, how do we implement that safely?
By wearing PPE,
And
making kid wear masks, shields, partitions, teach them how to distance, teach them how to, just like I said, they are in a better environment with us than they are without. That's why I would like to err on the side of, yeah, first 2 weeks, we can go hybrid 2, do whatever. Then we go to H1, get them in school, teach them, and then see how things go. That's our end goal, is that right there.
how can we say that's a good option if we're
We
not?
can distance and we have PPE. That school is huge. We've got gyms, we've got wrestling rooms. We can get creative.
The science specifically says that we have to have the social distancing piece as well as the PPE for it to be effective. So at the point in time where we cannot social distance in our classrooms in the high school, if we have the full classrooms in, or even if we have 10% removed, how can we have that as a safe option? That's my concern. And that's why I believe that you guys talked about this in the first, Dirk, was that's why hybrid 2 is recommended for 6 through 12 is because we cannot properly social distance. Spring Creek is a
How do you
nightmare
know?
for that.
How do you know? Has
Because
anybody,
pure statistically, if you look at those rooms, we know what the size of those classes are going to be.
how do
They
you
may
even
go
know
up.
how do you know how many students are?
Be-
Until we give Dr. Hlupnik
Mhm.
the,
You're calling the question on the proposal as it's put?
But I'm
Well,
gonna- yeah.
So why don't we start with the hybrid 2 and we evaluate as soon as reasonably possible whether we can go to hybrid 1. We give Dirk that discretion. We need to make sure that that's working first. I mean, if we do hybrid 2 in for the first 2 weeks, we work out the logistics, and then we go hybrid 1 for K through 5. We keep secondary at hybrid 2, and then we discover that everything's working great, then and we're able to social distance and we're able to work it in, then we don't have to wait till any magical date. We can reevaluate and change it. But if it's not working, or if we're seeing other communities that didn't go that route and they're seeing explosive transmission at the high school level, then we know that's probably not our best bet, and we can adjust from there. So I mean, this seems like a good way to get started. This is just a starting point, and then we decide from there where we need to go.
if it was an option, for me, it'd just be hybrid 1, giving everybody the opportunity to choose what they want to do, whether you want to do online or you want to go to class. And that's what I think everybody's missing is we're giving everybody choices here by hybrid 1. You're not really giving anybody a choice with hybrid 2 because you're telling them they have to do part of it online. And I don't agree with that. I think we're going to have more problems if you tell somebody you can go to school for 2 days, which I'm fine. It's about safety. But now you're saying, now you got to go home and you got to log on these days. I think we're just going to be into the same boat we were in the March, where you had low percentages getting on because there's not somebody at home that's going to be able to do that. Plus, not everybody has internet. So we're going to have to figure out who all has internet again.
We've already done that. have
Right? We
That's
can
our-
we
But
can
it's not-
handle that.
But it's not good. I mean, it's internet virtual is a terrible, terrible option. I mean, we all agree it's never going to be the preferred option. And we have huge equity issues as far as data speeds and limits and everything else. So I mean, it's a terrible option as far as virtual. So if we can avoid it in any particular way, that's, I mean, what we need to do to make sure all of our kids are getting the same opportunity for this education. So I mean, if we can get in there. So I guess my question is, can we get our student body within the high school with the current square footage and be able to distance using gyms, wrestling rooms, libraries? You know what I mean? Do we have enough square footage in that building?
Be very difficult. And moving in any of the common spaces, things
Mhm.
like lunch, would be very, very difficult.
Well,
They're not
moving's
doing
okay.
Lunches anyway. They're doing lunches in a classroom, are they not?
Even that, I mean,
Yeah.
if what you're talking about in using every square inch, it would be very, very difficult. I won't say it would be impossible, but it'd be very difficult.
Yeah, because passing times don't bother me. I mean, you're supposed to be within, what, 5 feet of somebody for 15 minutes or more or whatever. So as far as passing times, that's fine. Passing times are passing times with masks. That's perfectly fine. But it is the time that we're sitting down tight together with the other ones for a long period of time. Commons, through the gymnasium, through the libraries, you know what I mean? We really do need to get creative to get these kids back in school and back face to face.
Well, again, the stats show, if you're wearing your mask, I'm wearing my mask, you're not. So, I
I
mean,
mean,
So help me out here. We're getting
Trying to get
creative
these
by,
two to get
Yeah.
to talk, so we have
That's
to
all
a lot
right.
of questions, so.
Go ahead.
sorry, Gary, sorry, Chad. So help me out here. So we're putting them in the libraries, we're putting them in the wrestling rooms, the gymnasium, so on and so forth. Are we just pulling them out of the classrooms altogether as one class, so we still have that same teacher teaching them? Or when they're in those rooms without a teacher, are they online virtually? How does that function? So the idea is that we can use all these extra rooms to space, to have distance, correct? So we use the libraries, we use the atrium, and we use the gyms, we use the wrestling rooms at the high school. Who's teaching those classes?
your teachers, as soon as you move to like a gymnasium, your class size grows, right?
Okay,
So you have one chemistry teacher now that can teach 2 classes worth of kids, right?
so so we're sacrificing education in favor of social distancing.
No, you're getting your kids in front of a face-to-face instructor.
I understand that, but every statistic shows us the more kids you add to a class, the less efficient the education is.
Right. Is it more efficient than virtual?
There's never been a study done on it,
Right.
so we won't know.
Okay.
Running into each other during passing periods, you've got more people then to serve lunches, you've got more people to do all of that, as opposed to the hybrid 2, where you're just simply taking a role that, yes, it's less efficient, but it's safer.
Safer as far as,
As
yes, you
far
have
as they're
smaller
not
classes, right.
Intermixed.
But again, passing period is not a concern. You can walk by somebody with COVID and you're not going to catch COVID.
There's no
Right.
guarantee of that.
Right. It's still a droplet. It's still supposed to be a droplet driven disease, correct? Which is like technically a 1 meter radius is what you have when you have a droplet
That's
driven disease.
the primary way of
Right.
transmission, yes, but there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee of that.
No, if you wear your mask and you walk by me, yes. I mean, it's a droplet driven,
correct. And there's also
Right.
the different touch surfaces and everything else.
which is,
A different
right.
comment that was presented to me by a student, by a senior coming in, that said that it doesn't matter what happens in the hallways, because when these kids go in and decide to all hit the same vape as they're not supposed to do, that's where your transmission occurs anyways. So I understand what you're trying to say, but the less kids that we can have physically in the building at the time is the safer way to do it.
Oh, yeah. If we could have smaller classes, absolutely.
because you completely lost me.
It's half.
No, no,
It's
I
was
half
just
the
saying
number of
smaller
people.
class
There's a
sizes.
difference.
Oh, I get this.
Being in the building with 1,200 kids and being in the building, or excuse me, 1,100 kids, because that's half the population of the high school at one time, than being in the building with 2,200 kids. So yes, you're less likely to get it if you're there 2 days with half of the student population than if you're there 5 days with the whole of the student population.
None of it is ideal.
No, I get.
No.
it.
Oh, no.
I get less.
Yeah,
is
there is
better,
no,
but-
there is no,
I would
this
agree.
is the right
with-
answer.
Tom, I would agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
We've proven that it works. It's effective. It's not increasing the community spread. I think that's the best bet. I would challenge a little bit the online learning part for probably the majority of kids, because they've been using technology since they were probably preschoolers, before they even were in school. And now we're talking about 6 through 12. They've been using technology for a long time. They use Chromebooks every day in their learning. So if they're in classroom half the time, they're getting that in person, they're getting the social emotional, they're getting a lot of the benefit, and then they have to do some of the stuff online remotely. I think most kids can handle that. And the ones that are going to have challenges with that, with IEPs and stuff, we're planning on allowing them to be in person. So I think we can handle both. I don't think that this is the long-term plan at all. I think we need to see how it goes. And then if things are going great, then we move to H1 as quickly as we can.
Right, but there will not be a time to move to H1. If we start in H2, I can guarantee we will not move the high school to H1. Because there's not going to come a time in the next school year when they say, hey, COVID's gone, we don't have to distance anymore, things are good.
Right. I don't think,
I mean, that's not going to happen in this school year.
but it's 0% what we're looking for H1. Like, is that the metric? Because COVID's not going to go away.
No, it's going to be the removal of
But-
social, right?
but-
And that would have to be the almost eradication of COVID. Right? We're not going to stop distancing until COVID is under control. COVID is not going to be under control this school year.
Right. So
That's
so
what I'm saying.
what
There's
is
zero
what is
possibility
under
right now. Huh?
what's the number? What's under control? 3%, 5%? Right.
The World Health Organization says less than 5 is when you've got it under control and you can go back to school full time.
I think that's just, the question is, when is it gonna be? We don't know. So we could still, are we gonna be H2 next year? I mean, is this, at some point, if our goal is to get them back, why not sooner than later?
Well, right. So right now we're at 8%. I think that's what Dirk said earlier. You know, if it's I don't know the right number, so I'm just going to throw it out there. But you know, if we said it's 8% now, if we all go back to school and we follow this plan, and it drops below 5%, is that the time to reevaluate?
Well, I think, I don't know numbers because, I mean, it's not fair to say any number. I mean, the obviously goal would be for a perfect world that it's gonna be 0, but nobody knows that. But I think what is being misunderstood here is the choice. People that, if they go back to school, that's the parent's choice. If the teacher wants to teach, that's their choice. And that's where my stance is.
The choice only exists in the scenario where they can either
If you want to teach, if you want your son to stay home for school and do online, that's your choice, right?
only if I have the ability to provide that framework for them. At the moment in time where I can't be there because my job prohibits me, it's no longer a choice. At the moment in time
So
where
hybrid 2 tells them you have to get online at certain points. So who's going to be there to help your son get online if you're not there? To guarantee
But
that they get
that's exactly it. At the point in time, we're having the H2 facilitates the ability for them to be able to have some level of safety while making that decision. If we are purely at H1, we are not providing them that option for a lot of families because they simply don't have it. They'll send their kids to school just like they send their kids to school now if they have lice, just like they send their kids to now if they have the flu. We see it on a regular basis. You're presuming that everyone has the choice when not everyone does. And specifically with our teachers, I absolutely reject the idea that they have the choice. You're asking them to choose between their career or their health and assuming that that's just a simple
I'm gonna
choice.
stop you right there. Never once said that. Never once said that, Adam. And that is complete, that's just outrageous of you to say that. Never
That's
once said that.
exactly what you just said.
I said I would hope that they could make a choice, and that administration, because I can't say whether administration is going to do it, but I think if we had a teacher that come back and said, I would like to do online, I would hope that they could do that. So I don't know where you misconstrued that, but I'm ready to call the question too, unless Gary needs.
Gary and Chad haven't really had a chance to talk. You guys keep jumping in. So,
I haven't said much. I have, received all the emails. I read them all. I don't reply to very many of them. I know the whole board does. Like all the other board members, I've tossed and turned, I've flipped and flopped. There's good arguments on all of these things. I've had lots of discussions with Dirk, had individual discussions with other board members. I think nearly all the board members, except for Rick, who's, shows his dedication. He's on vacation and he's taking time out of that. We're all unpaid volunteers. None of us have been through a worldwide pandemic before. We're all doing the best we can. You look toward medical experts, so-called, and agencies whose job it is to give us guidance and information. And I understand, I'm a lawyer. There's differences of opinion, medical opinion and everything else. And so it's hard to sort all that through. We're doing the best we can. I would just say on the plan, I'd like to get back to hybrid 1 in the upper grades as well. I'm fine with giving Dirk that discretion. We'll open it up for 2 weeks. I do share your concern, Tom, that if we get into that, I don't want to be locked into that for the school year. Maybe it'll turn out to be that. Maybe it'll turn out to be, we opened up and it didn't work and we're back to online totally. Hope not. I think we'll continue to learn other information. I know that the parents would probably like to have, and I appreciate that at least in some of this material, that administration was trying to give the parents information by saying, well, we'll go through the end of the quarter. I'm more with what Brett was saying, is that let's open it up, do the 2 weeks. And maybe it'll be another 2 weeks and maybe it'll end up being the whole year. I hope not, but that we're constantly looking at what is the metric that we can get to H1 and get those kids back in person as much as we can. And I do think that the administration will work with staff to the extent we can to accommodate them. Now, if everybody says, I'm going to go online and that leaves nobody in the classrooms, that's a problem. I get it. And that's not our decisions to make as the board. But from what I understand, we are going to try to attempt to accommodate everybody that we can to keep everybody employed and pulling on the oar together to get through this thing. I think it's wise that I heard, we're not going to get through this. I had hoped originally, like we all did, well, Joellen called it crisis learning, and I think that was perfect. That's exactly what it was. We were trying to do something that had been forbidden till that time. And then all of a sudden was, okay, thou shall, instead of thou shall not, thou shall, when everybody's scattered to the wind and can't even see each other. In fact, we were able to do it at all, amazes me, but we did. And now that's, online is going to be more of a norm, but I'd say this to the teachers out there, and I often wondered, why is it that online is limited to these 2 schools or something, and everything else was thou shall not do it? I thought, is that somebody trying to protect jobs? Is that trying to protect administration? I didn't quite understand it. Some limit on innovation. But one thing that I have learned through this is, that we all knew, is the value of a teacher in a room with kids. And I do think there's all those social, emotional learning. I was always focused on the academics, like, a social emotional, that's kind of touchy-feely stuff. I don't get that. I'm a guy, whatever. But that is so key. We've talked about collaboration amongst employees. Now everybody's got to be 6 feet apart at least. And these kids collaborating. So everything's been upended. We're doing the best we can, the safest we can. There's no guarantees. Like Dirk said, it's not perfect. We can't assure, that perfect outcome. We're doing the best we can with the information we can. And I hope that we can, I guess I'll stop rambling, but I think if we could have this, and I know Dirk said, look, I know it said the end of the quarter because that was a logical stop, trying to give the parents guidance, but we're going to be looking at this continually. And I too share some other sentiments on the board, as I would like to get to H1, if at all possible, obviously sooner rather than later on the upper grades. So take a breath and be
Do you
quiet.
have anything else you want to add?
I think I've stated most of my opinion here, but I would like that to be a flexible date also. I get the planning part. I'd like to see us to have a clear matrix that maybe is more specific to our district than what we've been provided here. And also, I don't know, along those lines, we're talking about parents planning. If we are switching between hybrid 2 and hybrid 1, should we have it? So maybe this is already a plan, but if we're looking every 2 weeks, do we have some kind of a buffer where we say, okay, we've decided we're going to switch from hybrid 2 to hybrid 1. That's going to happen like 2 weeks out or something like that. I think that would give families the opportunity to plan and adjust to the new schedule. So I'm pretty strong in favor of what's been recommended, with the idea that let's move to H1 as quickly as we can.
And this is Rick Powell. I'd like to say something if I could. I agree with what Chad just said. I think we need to get to H1 as soon as we can, and I hope that we can do it safely. And I hope that our district on the days that our teachers have PD, professional development, that it can be take into consideration what we're going through. They need time to plan and they need time to collaborate with each other. And I think all of our schools need to have some, be equitable and follow the same type of plan. And I don't know if that's been mentioned, but I think that only happens with collaboration amongst teachers. And I think the plan that the district's recommending is pretty sound. And I do agree with Brett that there probably shouldn't be a time limit, or I don't think we should be held to times. It can be longer, it can be shorter. I agree with Brett that I wouldn't want to be held to a certain time that we have to make a decision, but it's just ongoing, like everybody said. So I appreciate the plan in place that's they're recommending.
Let me ask this, Dirk, do you think that as moved is sufficient to give you that discretion, or do we need to amend the motion in some way?
I think because the language specifically says remainder of first quarter,
Okay,
as you look there, says something like next, or,
Followed by.
yeah.
say that again, followed by?
So you've got the first 2 weeks is hybrid 2 for all, followed by hybrid 1 for PK through 5 and hybrid 2 for 6 through 12.
And then strike the starred
Oh.
statement at the bottom.
Because if you want to stick
Okay.
with hybrid 2 for 6 through 12, right now it says you can't, so, until October for the remainder, so can you just do?
Can't you just do reevaluate as needed instead of
Here's-
October?
One reason I would caution against that is I think having the date specifically being October 30th gives our families some clarity of when they could see a possible change.
I don't think anybody knows what's gonna happen here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parents that want to plan, but like I said before, we could shut down, in 2 weeks and not be going any direction. And so I would just say, we'll be first 2 weeks, hybrid 2 for all with reevaluation, biweekly. Would you be okay with that, Dirk?
How often do you need to reevaluate with your
Or
team?
weekly, or?
That's what you're doing every day anyway.
Right.
I just don't want to be
keeping
back
it
here in
daily?
Or September. Make those
Calls.
those calls from, with the proper administration channel, so.
We meet 2 times a
A
month.
month, right?
There's nothing,
We'll, we'll meet again before school starts.
right.
And from here on out, we're twice a month.
I guess I have a question too I have a little bit of a problem going with like Polk County data. I know we're Polk County, but we're also a rural area. We're basically on the edge. And we're not dense like Waukee. We're not dense like Ankeny. We're not dense like Des Moines. You know what I mean? So as far as their data, I don't think really is our data. And I know there's nothing that tells us what our data is.
How much of our population comes from Pleasant Hill and Altoona?
I'd have to,
I would argue it's based on the population of Mitchellville and Runnels as far as the school district goes. I would say that almost 90% of our come from Altoona and Pleasant Hill, which is dense Polk County. So I understand what you're trying to say, like Mitchellville and Runnels and some of the areas in between the
Yeah, more of a
unincorporated Polk County.
rural spread out. Yeah.
But almost 85 to 90% of our district is dense Polk County. And
I
at
think
that point-
we don't have a better source of data. If we
That's
could
true,
just
too.
get our school.
Dirk, if I amend the plan, if I amend it, what is a suitable time frame for
Edit.
you?
so I think I liked the followed by. And then maybe it's reevaluate in 2-week increments or weekly. That's the part that, who knows, because we.
I know. Right, right.
If we'll open on the
And that's
24th.
probably
No
why I
less
don't have a
than.
problem with October, is because I know this is gonna be ongoing, and I know we're gonna meet all the time. So How about I call the question and then if another,
Do the amendment first.
well, I wasn't even gonna make an amendment since I've already made the motion.
Okay.
So we vote on that, and then if that doesn't suffice, then we create another motion.
Before we vote, sorry, Lori, before we vote, I think, Dirk, you said this when you were laying it out for us, that hybrid 2, a family can select to go virtual if they're not comfortable coming back to school. Is that right?
Yes, no matter what. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So I'd like to call the question.
And this is the bill, or this is the amendment, or.
The recommendation, I made a motion for the
As originally
learning
written.
pathway recommendation.
I second that.
We just need Karen.
Yeah, I guess this is in calling the question. Is that what we're voting on? Everybody done?
And just to clarify, you're having it as originally written, not with any type of reduction as far as remainder of first quarter.
Correct.
Okay, so as originally
But
written.
we're voting on what's written here.
Administrator's recommendation.
Yes.
We're voting on the motion then, not the motion on the return to learn, not calling the question.
Yeah. We don't need to vote on that. Do we need to vote on that? I'm just calling the question. Yeah. So she can take a roll.
Technically, it depends on how you're interpreting Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah,
Theoretically speaking, calling in the question actually allows us to then move to a vote. It ends the debate.
Okay.
So she'd actually
so-
have to take 2 votes.
Okay.
So yes.
let
that's
her
what I
take
was thinking.
take-
I've got my Robert's rules right here.
Thank goodness you do. You're so wise. the two
Okay,
of you.
so we're voting on whether or not we're calling the question. Karen?
Slings,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes, we're calling the question.
Fisher,
Yes.
Corral,
No.
Nave,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
All right, now we will move to the motion
Vote, yeah, vote on the motion that was made.
as made.
Right. I'm trying to talk louder.
That mask mutes it. Must be a thick mask.
Okay, Karen.
Crab,
Yes.
Handy,
No.
Fisher,
No.
Corral,
Yes.
Nave,
No.
Powell,
No.
Slings,
Yes.
So that's 3-4, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So now you need a new motion.
Right. Does anybody want to make a new motion?
I'll make a motion.
I knew you would, probably.
So the next motion is, the school administration's recommendation, with the, so I say it right. Starting out as planned, hybrid 2 the first 2 weeks, and then going to hybrid 1, PK through 5, hybrid 2, 6 through 12, and then reevaluated every 2 weeks.
Well, no less than.
No, what do
But
you-
how do you know you can move pre-K 5?
I'm just saying the administration reevaluates every 2 weeks.
But you just put in your motion that it's specific hybrid 1 for PK 5 and hybrid 2, 6, 12.
And then,
That's still locking it in that in 2 weeks, that's gonna happen.
well, the first 2 weeks, and then reevaluate every 2 weeks. The school district reevaluates. That way you don't have a locked in date. You didn't like October.
That's how I understand it.
Yeah, so I'm just saying they reevaluate every 2 weeks.
Yeah, but what if in 2 weeks, that was the thing, is what if in 2 weeks, they figure out that they can socially distance everywhere, the numbers go down, now you locked yourself in,
I'm just locking it in to reevaluate every 2 weeks.
then,
They
Change it
decide.
after that.
then take out what happens. I mean, it's hybrid 2 for the 2 weeks, and then he can make the decision, depending on
Well,
if he wants to, in 2 weeks, change it to hybrid 1 for PK 5 and hybrid 2 for,
He wants you to scrap that second section.
then,
He wants you to
because,
only vote on the first 2 weeks.
but I don't think we're giving the administration enough direction for,
I think that's a lot of discretion, and
I don't think so. I think we give them that 2 weeks and then they know going after that 2 weeks, we start out with this. Flexibility of hybrid 1 and hybrid 2, and then they reevaluate it every 2 weeks, which they're doing it daily anyway.
yeah, but
So
you're
if they
specifically
need-
saying that,
I'm trying to give you as much flexibility as I can here.
I think it's important that we set our intention there, that we're going to do the 2 week
well, that's,
hybrid 2. Our intention is to move to hybrid 1 PK through 5 and hybrid 2 for 6 through 12, with every 2 weeks we're evaluating whether that should change.
what do you evaluate in the first 2 weeks then for the high school? You're not, you're basically saying for 4 weeks then, that one,
But we're giving everyone a little bit of direction. That's what I just did. I just made another motion. So, but they have the flexibility of every 2 weeks looking at it if it needs to change. But then we're not stuck on October.
yeah, I'm
It's
not for,
It's a little bit more flexible. I'm trying to give you some flexibility.
well, I don't, other than taking out the remainder of the quarter, that's basically saying hybrid 2 is gonna happen in 6 through 12 for the 4 weeks. Guaranteed. Because you just said combination hybrid for the first 2 weeks, and then it switches to PK through 5 for hybrid 1 and hybrid 2 for 6 through 12, and then be evaluated in 2 weeks.
When is the deadline going to be for parents to choose online option?
That'll be coming out on Monday.
Okay, so the deadline is Monday, or it'll be coming out when
Coming
it
out.
is? Will it be before our next board meeting?
Very likely.
Okay, so before our next board meeting, we'll have an understanding of exactly what the ratios should look like for day one as far as online versus not.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, sorry. The reason I mentioned that and the reason I say it that way is because that'll give us a better understanding if we have the possibility of social distancing at the high school or not. Because based on how many we actually really have in terms of online versus in class. So I think that as written, or as Lori is interpreting it now, I think will function because we can ultimately change it again in 2 weeks if we so choose. Or 2 weeks if we so choose, based on what those numbers are. And I think it's important to have the scope and play beyond those 2 weeks for parents to plan.
And not just parents, but the administration, the students, or the staff.
That's true.
All of them have been planning since last March and then in May, and they've worked and worked and worked and worked with some kind of a end plan to get us started safely. And so I'm trying to give you guys a little bit of buffer so you feel like you've got room there to everything change and adapt, but also they need something solid to work towards and for, and not, okay, we're going to do something different in 2 weeks, but a little stability. So they reevaluate. That's kind of, I'm just trying to make it all work, though none of this is wonderful.
No, it's pretty broad.
So type up that whole motion, Karen.
I mean, for 2 weeks, yeah, we're not giving any kind of indicators as far as what we're basing our decisions on either. Like, if, you know what I mean? We're not giving like a, if it's 5%, we're gonna do this, or, you know what I mean? It's,
We should know before the next meeting what the numbers will look like online versus in person, which that's why if we've got another meeting on the 20th, again, things are gonna change between the 20th, so locking it into 4 weeks is, I mean, heck, numbers could go up, my numbers could go down. And to sit here and say that hybrid, even elementary is gonna go to hybrid one is kind of,
We have to get started. We have to
the
start
start is 2 weeks, we're gonna do hybrid 2 to see, to evaluate. And then each 2 weeks, it doesn't have to be 2 weeks, I don't care, but locking it in there, I mean, you made your motion, I mean,
I did. I made the motion. Again, let's handle the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is that you, Chad?
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion? Karen?
Andy,
no,
Fisher,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Nave,
no.
Howell,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Crab.
Yes.
All right, that concludes our
Was that the
item
question?
on return to learn plan.
Point of order, Gary, was that the motion to call the question, or was that on the
Oh.
I
actual?
didn't call the question.
I didn't think she
just-
called the
yeah,
question.
she said, let's vote on my motion.
Did you misunderstand?
I didn't call the question.
No, I'm just
Okay.
referring to
All
Robert.
right,
We're running your way. So,
all right. Our next item, well, that concludes the business portion of our meeting tonight, where we actually vote and take action on items. The next portion of the meeting, topics for discussion. Item 3A is Model PLC District.
Dr. Latham will be joining us here in a
Okay.
sec.
Well, while we're waiting on that, there's been quite a commentary and a lot of questions that have come through Zoom. Is that something we can capture, and if appropriate, add that stuff to the FAQ?
Yes.
there's lots of concerns about what sterilization and cleaning looks like. So, specifically for buses. So,
Okay. I think we're set up here. Is my screen showing? Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, good. Well, good evening, board, and appreciate your rigorous discussion around what's best for kids. So to top that off, we're going to have a quiz. But since I know you've been working really hard, I promise there will only be one question for the quiz. So my question is, what designation has been achieved in only 18 districts across the nation?
Must be Model PLC District.
That, I think there was a dead giveaway there. Exactly. I'm very, very happy to announce that Southeast Polk has been named a Model PLC district. There are a number of buildings that are named Model PLC buildings, but very few across the country get to the district level. In order to achieve this, we went through a rigorous application where we wrote a descriptive narrative as well as provided artifacts for implementation, as well as student achievement data to show that it was having the intended impact that we wanted to have for students. And through that application, we got feedback from Solution Tree, as well as Dr. Holupnik and I had an interview with Mike Matos, one of the heads of Solution Tree. And throughout that process, we were recently named a model PLC district. We do intend when we return to school to celebrate this with teachers and honor all the teachers and the building leaders for their work. But I wanted to take some time tonight to thank you for your commitment in allowing our teams and supporting our teams in attending the PLC Institutes that has produced significant support for the way that we work together and the way we support our students. You know, Rick, you mentioned earlier tonight that collaboration is going to be absolutely necessary, and I completely agree with that. These times have been very challenging, and as Lori mentioned, this isn't a perfect solution. They've been very challenging, but I think with the efforts that have been made by teachers and building leaders and your support, we have a much better collaboration structure to make this work and support our students moving forward. So I want to celebrate that as a district and thank you for your support of this initiative to allow us to get to this point. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Our next topic for discussion is item Roman numeral 3B, enrollment update. I understand Joe Horton is going to talk on that. There he is.
Enrollment update for this year. For us, the enrollment process really begins in July. Actually, it goes year round, as you well know. But kind of the official kickoff for us being the elementary principals, the district registrar, and myself, it began on July 24th. Where we had a meeting, and the outcomes of that meeting were to review waiver requests that came from parents and families in terms of where their kids would attend school. We waded through 172 of those, and they're still coming, which is great. You know, keep them coming. We'll keep evaluating them. And then 85% of those 172 waiver requests were granted. So we tried to be as accommodating as possible in terms of, you know, the two basic criteria being, did the waiver request meet any of the criteria by which we use every year to evaluate those? And then the second criteria would be, did they really help to balance our class numbers from section to section or building to building or school to school? And like I said, 85% of those were approved, and then 15% were denied. We then looked at the next group of students. We always kind of do them in this order: waiver students first, and then open enrolled students second. We looked at placing 42 open enrolled students, and we got that done. You know, moving forward, we're going to continue to handle waiver requests, parent inquiries, and obviously we're going to continue to monitor student enrollment. You know, in particular this year, when it comes to, you know, trying to achieve balance, it may arguably be more important now than ever, in particular as we look at, you know, social distancing and the requirements that we're placing on teachers and the expectations that we're putting on buildings. Soon after that meeting, I ran the enrollment report. By the way, you have all of these reports. But I ran the district enrollment report, and across the district, we're up 72 students compared to this time last year, which is really good news. Very positive sign, for our schools, community growth, the health of the district, and in many ways the desirability to live here and go to school here. Elementary students are up about 62 kids. And, obviously we're going to watch the kindergarten numbers, and we always do. We watch those a little closer only because, it's really the most unknown or unguessable number we have in terms of how many students overall we're going to have. So, and at the same time, the Rob Schwartz organization, RSP, who does our demographic studies, sees that kindergarten number going up as we get closer to school and as the school year continues. We do have some hot spots in enrollment in the district. All of them currently are in Clay or 4 Mile. We're looking at 3 different sections at Clay and 2 at 4 Mile that are currently what we would call closed. And then, we'll be working from families from here on out if those numbers, tend to, continue to creep. We're hoping for some more movement at Delaware. And by that, I mean, there's a relatively small class average of 19 for each class. Now, that doesn't mean that all of them are at 19, but that's kind of the average. And it's a little bit low for a building of that capacity. And then, on the other hand, pragmatically speaking, smaller class size provide, simpler equations for trying to figure out social distancing and for those calculations and those constructs. Spring Creek is kind of able to take a breath. I think last year 611 kids were at Spring Creek, and we're down just right around 100 kids lower than that this year. So I think they're going to enjoy a breath of fresh air. And then the junior high, with that 611 moving into 7th grade, they'll be up about 20 kids overall. And the high school, which has been a topic of conversation tonight, currently they're just short of the 2,200 mark, and it looks like they're likely to get there next year. If in an effort to kind of be brief, if you have questions about enrollment, I'd be glad to answer them. But I think that covers kind of the main points and the biggest pieces of enrollment as it sits today, and the numbers that you have in front of you. Nearly all of them will change by the time the first school bus pulls in to drop kids off. But hopefully not. Hopefully we won't see a great change. But if we do, we'll adjust. We've seen that before. But I'm open for questions.
Mr. Horton, this is Gary Fisher. Could you say again the number of sections of 4 Mile and Clay that are hot spots, closed?
Yes. Yeah. Clay has 3 right now. Kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade are, I wouldn't necessarily say they're full, but they're healthy. They're to the point where they've got our attention, and, I don't think we're going to run right out and, run 5 or 10 kids into those classrooms. That's for sure. And then at 4 Mile, it's just kindergarten right now.
Okay.
And we try to cap those in the low 20s if we can, if at all possible. And that's where they're hovering right now. Whereas most of the other schools, are in the teens, except for Centennial. Centennial's in the low 20s. They're in the low 20s, more like 20 and 21, as opposed to, 15 apiece at Runnels, or maybe 19 and 18 at Willowbrook.
Thank you.
Sure.
Doesn't look like there are any more questions. Thank you, Joe.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. Our next item is adjournment.
Yay. Motion to adjourn.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
But, when are we off, when we're offline?